Good evening and welcome to another edition of Down to the Wire. Joining me tonight is Capping with Candace here, and we're going to take a look at the All Stakes Big Apple Bluegrass Pick 4 this coming weekend. We'll also quickly give a few notes and comments on the Anita Derby. First off, Candace, we're going to take a step back and kind of recap the matchup on Saturday at Gulfstream. Moyhamen against Nyquist, and just some of your overall thoughts.
For me, I thought that this was a race where Nyquist went into it with, if anything, just a tactical advantage. We didn't know if he would necessarily really strongly stay 9 furlongs, but we knew that he was the inside speed, and we knew that he's very tough to pass, and that alone was going to give him an advantage against Moyhamen. Moyhamen, I think, ran worse than, at least than I expected, but he encountered a problem that I was worried about from him from the get-go, and that was that I really felt, after going through his replays before the Florida Derby, that he didn't have the tactical speed that people were crediting him with, that he had really been in several small fields, and they went slow paces early, and he set a couple lengths off those slow paces. And because they were small fields, he didn't really cop much, flack for that. He didn't really have to pay for that. But when you got him in a larger field and got, a true quality early speed individual like Nyquist, he found himself in trouble because he was out wide and there really wasn't anything he could do about it. I was saying before the race that I thought maybe the tactics with him would have been to just drop him out the back, because at least then you knew he'd get a ground-saving trip and just make that one run. But it's almost like they thought, we can push him forward here, and he didn't have the speed to do that. So, a move that he was able to get away with the race before in the Holy Bull, when he was really roused early to get up there near Zulu, he wasn't able to get away with that in a bigger field against better horses, and he got cut out for it. Now, I think Moyhamen's better than what we saw from him in the Florida Derby, but I think it's pretty clear that Nyquist is a better horse than Moyhamen is. And those two, I don't expect that form to reverse. So if you're a fan of Moyhamen, I almost think at this point you have to some extent, be a fan of Nyquist, unless you hear from McLaughlin or somebody saying that they're going to drop Moyhamen out the back in the Derby. That'd be the only situation I could see that reversal of form, is if you drop Moyhamen out the back in the Derby and you get some kind of suicidal tempo up front. But it's going to take something unusual, I think, to have Moyhamen beat Nyquist in the Derby.
Well, Nyquist is already in Keeneland in Kentucky, and it sounds like Moyhamen is going to go there in the next couple of days. So I do like that aspect. In the last few years, we've seen quite a few horses ship in late, and I actually like having the horses in Kentucky. You see a few more videos and a few more workouts, and it just seems like as a handicapper, you can get a little bit more information if they're actually on track at either Keeneland or Kentucky. So I like that, and we'll see how, we've got to go through this last round of preps this week and next week, and then start to kind of sort all the horses out. But they both have enough points to get there. Majesto is going, and Fellowship is going. So 4 horses out of that race are going to end up being among the 20. So you can't really argue with that if you're Gulfstream.
No, you can't. And I think, if anything, maybe the only concern as a handicapper looking at that race is, I think I would have felt better about it if Moyhamen would have finished second, just because I'd feel like it was a stronger form race. I guess maybe the worry in there is that Moyhamen, for some reason, just threw in a bad run, or bounced, or whatever theory you believe in. And so I would say the only worry about it, if you're a fan of Nyquist, is I would say it's plausible that Nyquist won that race but didn't exactly stay the trip. If anything beats Nyquist in the Derby, it's going to be the trip. So with Moyhamen not finishing second, it doesn't give me as much confidence as it would have that Nyquist actually stayed 9 furlongs, even though he won. It may have been class that carried him home in that race over a horse like Majesto.
This week, the Big Apple and the Bluegrass have combined for a All Stakes Pick 4. And in the past, they used to have Pick 3 with these big races, the Anita Derby and the Bluegrass. And the wood, and for some reason that I don't think anybody in America knows why they don't do that anymore, they finally have at least brought back 2 of the 4 and made it into a pick 4, and it's a 50-cent minimum. The pool originates out of Keeneland, so it's a little bit lower takeout. We're going to take a look at the 2 aqueduct races, and then we'll take a look at the 2 bluegrass races and kind of give you some horses to include, maybe bring out some trip notes and kind of help you set up your pick 4 tickets, and then ultimately pick a winner in the bluegrass and the Keeneland race, since we focus in on the 3-year-olds. But let's start off with the Bay Shore. And this race, Awesome Speed is entered in a race at Laurel. So I'm not sure if he's actually going to run in the Bay Shore, but it's kind of, you're bringing in some horses from Laurel, up from Florida, couple that wintered at the winner in the Big A. So it's a nice matchup of 3-year-olds.
It is, and Never Gone South, I think, is also entered in that same race at Laurel, so we'll have to see what happens with those guys. But nevertheless, for me personally, that doesn't affect my stance in here all that much, because both of them would sit in similar kind of forwardly placed spots just off the speed. But, for me, when I first saw this field, I zoned right in on a horse who I loved on debut. That was Unified, a son of Candy Ride, who for James Jerkins really, really impressed me on debut out at Gulfstream Park. Just went straight to the front and went on with it. I thought that he was really impressive. And when you look at the work tab since then, all he's doing pretty much is firing bullets. So, this is a horse who I thought ran a really big effort that first time out. And he's been given a good little break, hasn't ran since the end of February. So that's helpful, I think, for a horse, especially a young horse, after they've run a big effort. If they get just that little bit longer of a break, it tends to be a good thing. And obviously his horses do very well up here in New York. So Unified, I think, is one to really key on in there. The other one who I really would give a long look to, and he's one we haven't seen for a while, but if we remember out in the juvenile scene, back to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Cocked and Loaded was a horse who, really kind of made for a name for himself when he won the Iroquois, and was kind of running out there at Churchill against Rated R Superstar, and against Unbridled Outlaw, who at the time was getting a lot of hype. And he ran fine in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He finished 5th in there. And obviously that's a race, we've seen Nyquist won there, and he's been winning since. But I like that they're bringing him back on this cutback 7 furlongs. He's been gone for a while. I think this is a good spot for him to kind of start back his 3-year-old campaign. They've clearly been patient with him. And, Larry Ravelli does well off of these sorts of long extended layoffs as well, too. So I think he's a dangerous type in this race as well. Even if, he's probably not a true sprinter, he's one of these types who I think can really make a statement on this kind of tricky 7 furlong distance. So for me, I'd be going too deep in here. I'd be using Unified, and then I'd be using Cocked and Loaded.
Yeah, I think, the couple of the Laurel horses, I think one of those 2 probably will end up scratching out of the race, which kind of alters the pace a little bit. My top 3 contenders are Unified, just because he ran right off the screen in his debut. Awesome Gent, I thought, ran huge in his most recent race, and he's now won 3 straight races by open lengths, all at the Aqueduct track, but the speed figures are good, and he's looked impressive doing them. So I think you have to almost include him. And then a lot of times I like to look at horse races where I think people get too wrapped up in the long-term view of the horse's form, but I thought Awesome Speed ran a heck of a race back in January, and I thought Richie the Bull actually ran a nice race in that Swell Stakes. So I think Richie the Bull looks a little better. He actually ran against Awesome Banner, but that's when Awesome Banner ran well. So I just think Richie the Bull might get a little bit overlooked here. I think Unified's the horse to beat. I think Unified's going to be 3 to 5 on the board, but I think Richie the Bull may be the horse that people are going to say, well, Awesome Banner, he isn't any good. Well, Awesome Banner wasn't any good routing, but as a sprinter, he was fast.
He absolutely was fast. And you mentioned Awesome Gent. Well, so many awesomes here. You mentioned Awesome Gent is one to keep an eye on here, too, for Todd Pletcher. I'm interested in your take. He's only ran 1 time recently that he hasn't gone against Restricted New York Bred Company. Now, he won that, but are you at all concerned with him making kind of this class rise? Because I don't think that was a strong bunch he beat last time out.
No, it wasn't a strong bunch, but King Kranzas ran an open company, And so I just like the way he's been doing it. Now 7 furlongs is probably going to be the upper reach of his abilities, because it looks like they definitely don't want to stretch him out. So they think he's a sprinter. Richie the Bull, I think ultimately a couple of these horses are really more 6.5 furlong horses. If this was 6 furlongs, I think Awesome Gent would be a pretty tough horse in this race, but 7 furlongs. But on the other hand, Unified, as fast as he looked, I mean, he's still facing winners for the first time. He's shifting tracks, and he's got to prove it on the track. I mean, we can't just all look at the video and say, oh, there's your winner, and he's got to go out and do it. So I think Unified is going to be 3 to 5, but I definitely like Awesome Gent and Richie the Bull over Cocked and Loaded, just because I think Cocked and Loaded, they're still saying they're going to go to the Preakness. I'm just wondering if this is not just a total run around the track race.
I mean, it's possible. I guess just Ravelli horses off these long breaks tend to be fairly well meant. So even if you're going Preakness, you're saying, okay, maybe you run here and then you run Preakness. So you still think he'd be pretty close to being cranked, and he is firing bullets. So I feel pretty secure going Cocked and Loaded for me, but clearly a wide open race, because between the two of us, we've covered 5 horses in this field.
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean heavily on Unified, and if Unified wins, that's, right away you could start off with a pretty low priced horse. But I think, you have to make a decision to how you use your backup horses, and how, if you go deeper with a Cocked and Loaded, or if you go with, Richie the Bull. I don't know. It's kind of hard to toss Unified from.
Yeah.
I mean, I can toss other favorites, and we'll be talking about those later on, but I ain't tossing Unified. So
no, I'm the same. Like, there's other favorites in the sequence I would be fine tossing completely off my ticket. Unified, not one of them. So we at least agree there. Unified must use.
Now in the Wood Memorial, it ended up being an 8-horse field. A couple of these horses met in the Withers and the Gotham and various races. Shagath is the morning line favorite, but I thought, there's some newcomers in here, and especially the couple from the West Coast, would be a good chance to at least evaluate that form.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a really interesting race just because you not only get those shippers, but you get the new face of Matt King Cole, who ran in the allowance last time out on Gotham weekend, and then you also get a bunch of horses who ran the Gotham, which was a race that had a fairly strong inside speed bias. So it's a race that you can already expect perhaps might not hold form. I mean, Shagath had done very well to that point. I don't expect him by any means to run a bad race here. I did think he got a little bit of a setup in there, but nevertheless, I thought he ran extremely well, and I expect him to do the same again, but I don't think he's any sort of a shoo-in in this race either. The horse who really, from the Gotham, I think when you watch that race over and over again, bearing in mind that there is that inside speed bias, the one you have to kind of take out of it is Adventus too. For most of the track was outside. He tried to kind of make a move down the outside. It didn't quite work out, but considering in front of him was Shagath, probably the class horse in the race, and then Lauban, the horse who benefited most from the way the track was playing that day, I thought Advantage ran a pretty nice race in there. He didn't have it all super easy, and he still is a little bit green. I mean, this is a horse that, at times, from the whip and stuff, doesn't seem to kind of take kindly to it. He's really still learning what this is all about. I mean, we have to remember that he's only ran 3 times. So a horse who I would say is eligible to improve more so than some of these, and one who you can clearly take as a trip horse, being, based on how the bias was playing last time out in the Gotham. That's Adventist. So he'd be one who I'd be looking to use in here. The other one who I would be looking to use in here is Flexibility. I mean, this is a horse who had ran well up until last time out when it ran in the Withers. That was a really weird race, just pace-wise. I think everything's set up wrong for him. I'm willing to give him another chance here. He seems to be working well, and he's a horse who had shown too much promise before that race for me to just completely toss him out after that. So I expect him to bounce back here. The distance might be a little bit of a concern for him in particular, but I do think that he has a little bit of a class edge on these, even if he did throw in a little bit of a stinker last time. We've seen much, much better than him before that. So for me, this is one I'm going a little bit deeper than last time. I used 2 in that first leg, but here I'm going to go with 3. I'm going to use Adventus, I'm going to use Flexibility, and I'm going to use Shagaf. Matt King Cole, I guess the one thing I'd say is I think he's very talented. I like him as an individual. I loved his allowance race last time out, but he is one of those who benefited from that bias, and I think he's going to have to really work out front with Outwork in this race, who's plenty fast in his own right. So it would be why I'm not using Matt King Cole and why I'm not using Outwork for that matter.
The 2 horses from Tampa Bay, Tal of Saval and Outwork, both ship up. I think this is one of the, I really watched that Tampa Bay Derby quite a few times when it happened. And this is one of the times where I just think the past performances lines are, I don't know what's up with them. Maybe it's just the way the points of call happen. But if you read the past performances on Tal of Saval, it says 8th by 9, 8th by 8, 8th by 8, 6th by 9. When you watch the race, you see him make up about 6 lengths between the back pole and the turn. So it's like, I don't know if somehow just in the way the charts are figured out, it basically looks like he's just running in place, but he made up ground. That's all I can say. Watch the replay. If you disagree, you disagree. But I see a horse making up 4 or 5 lengths, and the past performances make it look like he just ran evenly all the way around. So I don't know how that works, but I think this horse made a move in that race. I think he's usable just because I think that was totally a prep race, and Barclay Tagg wins in New York. So I definitely think he's usable. Matt King Cole is my top pick. I think he's just like XY Jet. I think in an era when nobody has speed sticks out. I think this is one tough running son of a gun that even if he doesn't win the race, he's going to make sure Outwork loses it. And I just don't think Outwork can hang with him early on. I think Matt King Cole's that good. And I'll take a chance with him to wire this field all the way around, just because, like I say, when nobody wants to use their speed, that's why XY Jet. Do I think he's one of the greatest sprinters of all time? No, I just think they got aggressive 5 straight races, and I think Matt King Cole is the type of horse that just going to get out there and winging it on the front end, and all of a sudden he's going to be up by 3 coming into the turn, and people are going to be shaking their head on that. I'm tossing Outwork. Ran a nice race against Destin the last time, but I thought, again, going into that race, he was like the speed on the inside. He was gritty, dug in. Some people think he can improve off that. Well, you know what? A lot of times horses decline off that. Now he's going further. He still only had that 4.5 furlong race last year. Like, it just doesn't seem like he has the bottom. I am interested in both Delmore and Flexibility. I don't know if I'm going to use them. I'm definitely going to use Tal of Saval, Matt King Cole, and Shagaf, and I'll just kind of let it ride with those 3, I guess. Although I do think Flexibility and Delmore are kind of interesting. Delmore I'll probably just use more at the bottom half of the trifectas. But Outwork is a toss for me in the win in the exacta spot.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Outwork. For me, you kind of summed it up there, is that people seem to think he'll improve off of that Tampa Bay Derby effort. But in reality, especially for horses who are maybe more so sprinter types, often they run their best time routing the first time they route. And as you say, they kind of can regress from there. So I wouldn't expect him to improve off of that, especially because I just flat think he's not going to stay this trip at all. I think he showed it in the Tampa Bay Derby. To be frank, I thought that was a race that was winnable if he stayed the trip, and that to me, he just didn't stay. So I don't like Outwork here at all. I said before, I'm not using Matt King Cole just because I do think Outwork from that outside post is going to be sent. So for me, you said it was Shagaf, Tal of Saval, Matt King Cole. I think for me it's Shagaf, Adventus, Flexibility. We're not agreeing. One of us is going to win, and one of us is going down hard this weekend.
Well, no, we still have Shagaf winning. We're both alive, but
I guess.
I have a strong opinion on Tal of Saval running in this trifecta.
If at this point we're both winning, that means this pick 4 is going to pay about $5.
Yeah, but I do encourage people to watch that Tampa Bay race, because I don't know how you can have that horse running evenly all the way around when he was in dead last behind Brody's Cause at the 1 call, and then he passes Brody's Cause, runs up the rail. Seems like he gained like 5 lengths, and then the past performances have him as even. I truly don't understand. Like I say, unless he just somehow started his move right after the 2nd call and then faded right before the 3rd call, which is possible. It just seems odd. He made a move in that race, is all I can say.
Yeah. Watch.
The Madison Stakes is a 13-horse field. And, you know, a lot of people, I mean, the resumes are great, but, you know, sometimes a race like this, I think everybody gets all excited about it, but half these horses haven't ran this year. I mean, do you really expect 6 horses off a layoff to go all out in this race? I mean, I think some are more meant than others. I just don't know which ones.
Yeah, some are definitely more meant than others. I wouldn't doubt that. And some of these have ran this year and some of them haven't. So you have to bear that in mind, that some of these horses might have a little bit of a fitness edge in here. I mean, I'm interested in how you think that this is going to go pace-wise, because it's a pretty large field. But I don't see a ton of speed in here. Maybe a horse like Sunday Rules goes forward. But there isn't a lot in here. I mean, what do you see pace-wise?
Well, I mean, I think Enchanting Lady, who's my top pick, is the speed and the class and the in-shape horse and the horse that's trying to win a Grade 1 right now.
Yeah.
I just think she's the leader. And then I think there's a couple of pressers. I mean, Super Majesty obviously can be pressing that pace if she wants to, but she's off a layoff. Sheer Drama, I mean, after they finally got her to rate and relax and stretch out, I don't think they want to go near the lead, which, I mean, she has the talent to, but I just don't think they're gonna. Waveville Avenue did her best running off the pace last year, so I don't know. I guess I see Enchanting Lady on the pace, but even a horse like Close falls off and Super Majesty could be pressing.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder even Enchanting Lady a little bit, because it seems like every time they've shipped her east and have ran her in this sort of company, she's been off the pace. And, well, she's had a few really weird races when they've done that as well. But as you say, she came back this year, ran really well in an allowance race, one that handily steps up back now to graded stakes company. As you say, she's the fit horse in here, so definitely one to consider perhaps on that alone. I mean, how do you assess a race like this? Because you're having horses now who they last ran the Breeders' Cup Distaff over 9 furlongs. At 7 furlongs now, is that almost too big of a drop down? Are those horses who have the necessary early speed to be competitive at a 7 furlong race?
Well, I still like the class edge. I mean, there is, I mean, to me, that's where that class comes in, especially at 7 furlongs. I mean, yeah, I just wonder really how cranked up a horse like Stop Charging Maria is, or Sheer Drama, and then Sunday Rules, who's 8 for 9. I mean, she seems like they're trying to get it. I mean, it seems like there's 2-3 fillies in here trying to get that Grade 1 win for the broodmare value. And so to me, that says Enchanting Lady, that says Sunday Rules, and then you've got a couple of horses that they want a hot pace, like Bird at the Wire. Dancing House, I mean, she wins 50% of the time. I mean, it is a nice field, but I think I'm going to play more of the in-shape horses that have been running. I guess that's how I'm going to play the race. So I'm going to play horses like Enchanting Lady, Sunday Rules, Bird at the Wire, and Dancing House. And if Sheer Drama wins or Stop Charging Maria wins, I won't have it. It's that simple.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned mine, because this was a race that actually there was a standout in here to me. I'm singling Dancing House. I love this filly. I think that she is one who really has risen up through the ranks in the last, time that she's come back from, obviously something went wrong. She was gone for a long period of time. She showed talent before that, mostly on the turf, but she's really found her way sprinting. And I thought that in the Robert Fritchie at Laurel Park, she showed an even better dimension when she was stretched out to 7. I think she's one of these horses that 7 furlongs is just kind of her pet trip, and that she really is a specialist in this sort of a distance. And she's tractable. She can sit just off the speed. I don't see a ton of speed in here, so I think she's one who could get a really nice trip in this spot. So I'm going to single her. The only way that I would use any other horse, I'll preface by saying, is if it is raining and you get any sort of a downgraded surface. I know rain is possible. So if you have a good, muddy, sloppy, anything downgraded from a fast track, then I would say to include Fioretti. She's a mudder. She loves it wet. But aside from that dry track, I'm singling Dancing House in here.
What about cavorting? I think some people are going to look at that Keeneland Breeders' Cup effort, but remember, she had the 14th post that day. I actually thought she ran a pretty solid race, racing wide, and there was some wicked fractions in there. And, but now she gets the rail and she's off the layoff. And then last year she struggled in her first race of the year at Gulfstream. It seemed like they kind of raced her into shape. So I think she's going to take a lot of money. I mean, in that 4 to 5-1 range.
Yeah, I think she's going to take money, and I'd be a little bit against her. I thought that, agree with you, that she ran a big race in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, having drawn that 14 post and really having to make a move. I think she's about 7 or 8 wide there coming around the turn. So I thought she ran well. She also broke pretty slow. Didn't break slow, but was kind of lazy out of the gate, I guess I would say. Just kind of slow to get into stride. But I thought she ran really well there. For me, though, I couldn't have her off of that La Brea effort. I thought it was poor. She's a better horse than that, and I know she had a little bit of trouble there, but it doesn't matter. She should have been winning a race like that. So it's possible she was maybe over the top by that point, but I'd be feeling fine leaving her be in this sort of a spot, especially because she's drawing the rail. Horses like her who go back, I tend to not like when they drop the rail because it usually means then you have to drop all the way to the back and circle the field. It just makes it a little more difficult in big fields like this. So that's my take on cavorting. Good horse, but I don't think this is the race to bet her.
I did want to mention 13 Arrows just to showcase the quality of this field. I mean, this horse was 6-1 2 years ago in the Prioress, the top filly speed race at Saratoga. She's 6 for 11 lifetime, 1 for 1 at Keeneland. She has a win at 7 furlongs, and she's listed at 30-1 on the morning line. So, she's never been high. Her last 5 races, her odds have been even money, 4 to 5, 4 to 5, 6 to 5, 7 to 5, and 1.30. And she's listed at 30-1 in the morning line. So I think that kind of gives people a little bit of a clue of the depth of this race.
Yeah, I mean, that's even like Fioretti, who I mentioned I would be using if the track was wet. She won the Thoroughbred Club of America Stakes at Keeneland just last fall, and here she is, 30-1.
So, yeah, definitely a quality race. I guess my only strong opinions, I'm throwing out the 2 classy routers. I'm throwing out Sheer Drama and Stop Charging Maria just because I think this is a total prep for the Churchill Downs race that they're going to run in.
Yep, I'm with you there. Singling Dancing House so long as the track is dry. So for me, there's a standout in this one. And I think this is the type of race you kind of zig where everyone zags. This is a race where I think people are going to use like 5, 6 horses. So I'm going to use 1.
The Bluegrass wraps it up. As you mentioned, there is a small chance of rain. Even if it's not rainy, it sounds like it's going to be 45 degrees. So they'll be bundled up drinking the hot chocolate on Saturday or putting bourbon in their hot chocolate, whatever it is they do at Keeneland. But anyways, nice full field. If you love full fields, 16 horses entered, 14 may run. Sometimes it seems like a little bit of overkill. I'd rather have more 10 and 11 horse fields. I think post position draw was very bad for 3 top contenders.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the types of horses, again, when you're talking post position. I know I saw you on Twitter like, my man Sam, it's done. But he just goes off the pace anyway, so from the outside, I don't mind that too much. He'll be able to kind of track his way back and slot in somewhere towards the back. That's typically where he runs from anyway, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. I see quite a bit of speed in here, to be honest. I mean, a horse like Zulu's going to be pushed by Lauben if he doesn't go on with it. Twiz is fast. I mean, even Donegal Moon can go forward. You wonder horses like American Dubai, Cars of Stone, who are drawn wide, what they do with them. They might push them both forward as well. Even Star Hill was only a length off in his maiden breaker, so you don't know drawn wide if they might push him. So this seems one of these races that they could actually go anywhere from maybe on the faster side of moderate to very fast in here. Anywhere in that range wouldn't surprise me, but I definitely don't think we're going to be getting any sort of a slow pace out front. So my man Sam is one I think you have to use. I don't care that he's drawn 14 because I think that he's going to cop the best of it pace-wise in here. And I loved his race last time out behind Matt King Cole. I thought he ran better than Matt King Cole the way the track was playing that day. To close from where he did, I think he really showed that he's improved in these last few races since he's been stretched out to these routing distances, and he's one in here who looks absolutely like he wants this 9 furlongs. You know, we talk about some of these horses that, you know, will they stay the trip? I think he wants this trip and needs this trip. So my man Sam is one who I would be using in here. The other one who I'd be using is Cherry Wine. I like this horse back at Gulfstream, and when he won an allowance race over Battery, and then he was gone for a while, and I was kind of against him in the Rebel just because I didn't really know what to expect. He missed time, he missed planned races, and that's just usually not a good recipe for running a quality race, but he impressed me there. He ran pretty well, I thought. I mean, I'm still a little dubious about that Oaklawn Park form, but at least, if anything, he does have form at Gulfstream, and he'll be coming again from the right spot, which is towards the back. The third one I would use in here is Brody's Cause, especially if we do get that weather, then I think you absolutely have to use him. But regardless, I'm willing to forgive that last effort. This is a horse who had proven juvenile form. He's shown that he really, has an affinity, I think, for this Keeneland surface, even more so if you get weather, but even dry, he tends to run really good races in here. Tampa Bay, he had a lot of problems in there to begin with, and trip troubles and coming off of the long layoff, and this is a barn who typically does their best work second start off the layoff anyway, so I'd expect some pretty big improvement off of that race as well. So for me, it's 3. My Man Sam, Cherry Wine, and Brody's Cause.
Couple of changes on Zulu. He gets blinkers and he gets a new jockey. Velasquez is going to New York in the Wood to ride Outwork. Kind of interesting blinkers on with Zulu.
Yeah, I was intrigued by that. I didn't really think, I didn't know why they were doing that. I thought that he ran fine last time out, so I wasn't sure why they're looking for an equipment change. Didn't see anything that really stood out from him in the Fountain of Youth, so it's an intriguing move, but, if anything, it probably is going to make them go faster.
And then just, I remember in the Rebel Stakes, you liked American Dubai, and he's 30-1 here. Is there any, a lot of times, sometimes you can be on a horse and you won race too early. Did you even glance at him here, or is there something in the Rebel that you just said, maybe you overestimated him or something?
No, I'd use him not in the pick 4. I don't think that a win is likely for him, but he's one I would toss in on the bottom end of tries. I do think he's gritty. And last race, something clearly went wrong. He went up towards the front, and then they just wrapped him right up and pulled him out the back. So, something obviously went wrong, or, the jockey felt something didn't feel right on him. Something, though. It wasn't, he stopped so fast and so early. They weren't even doing the real running yet. So I think clearly that's a race you could just toss out because he didn't really do anything in there. But I don't think he's going to win. I don't think he's really a win threat in here. But at that big price, definitely in tries, I'd be using him in those second, third spots.
Like I say, I think post position played major havoc on this race. I'm going to use Zulu. I've never really been that impressed with the horse, and I could see him completely running out of the money just as likely as a few of these others. My Man Sam I'll use. I probably less just because of that post. Star Hill I'll use again less because of the post. I kind of like Zapparini, but again, he got stuck with the 12 hole. I guess my top pick is Cherry Wine. And then, so I'll use kind of, those 3 outside and Zulu, and I'm really anti Brody's Cause. I don't think he ran a step at Tampa. I think he met 3 fields that just disintegrated last fall, and he has a turf stride to me. So I'm anti Brody's Cause. Leoban, I can't take this horse seriously until he, the sad thing is he's probably going to run the top 4 and he'll be in the Derby, but, a horse like this is, he had his chance. He was up by 5 lengths on Let's Meet in Rio, and then he ran a nice race in the Sham, and then he ran a nice race in the Gotham. But now he's facing 14 other horses and a new track, and he just seems like one of these horses that he's just not going to win this race. I'm not saying he can't run good. I just don't think he's going to win it. So for pick 4 purposes, I just can't include a horse like Leoban.
Yeah, I can't use him at all. I thought he, that was a horse who really, really got the best of it. In the Gotham, and he still couldn't win. So that kind of says it all to me there. Under ideal conditions, he still couldn't win.
I am intrigued a little bit by Twiz. If you just look at his past performances, you're going to see, fade, then win by 4 at the fairgrounds. But all 4 of those races, the last 2, he really stepped it up, almost 50 points in speed figures. He's got a route pedigree. He definitely looks more like a sprinter. but I don't know. It could be, I mean, depending on how the track is playing Saturday, he could maybe take these horses a little bit further than people think. I just don't think he can win. But, you know, I'm not sold that Leoban's a front runner, and I'm not sold Zulu's going to go. I mean, Twiz could take him a little longer than people think, or at least he might spread out this field a little more than people think. I think he's kind of the key to the race here.
Oh, I definitely think he's the key to the race pace-wise. I guess just for me, I think they're going to go fast, so I think he's going to be right up in the mix of that. But if he were to some reason pull back, then, yeah, it could change the complexion of the race pace-wise.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If he pulls back or just stops after 4 furlongs, I could see Zulu sitting on a 2-length lead with slow fractions, and he may just be gone. It may just be too much to do for a horse like Cherry Wine, and then the outside host will just get stuck trying to pass all those horses with slow fractions, which that's never an easy
Not
thing.
easy. No.
Yeah, so, I mean, the race is tricky. I know your favorite thing in racing is to always play the Parks shipper with a high speed rating. That's what you always say to bet.
No. Avoid.
Donegal, I mean, what is this? Honestly, I see horses even running at Aqueduct on Saturday, shipping in from Parks with 100 speed ratings. Like, does any horse win there that doesn't have 100? And have they ever duplicated those figures anywhere else?
No.
It does boggle my mind. Like, it just seems like they're not adjusting these figures. And like, Donegal Moon clearly got beat by 8 lengths 2 times in a row to Flexibility and Mohayman and Sunny Red.
Then he became a star.
And then all of a sudden he wins by 13. And then that's the note too. In the daily racing form, it says fully extended. Who is fully extended when they're winning by 13?
Winning by 13. Yes.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, I guess that's the jockey I want to bet on at Parks, because E. Esquivel, he doesn't take anything for granted. He's got the horse fully extended even up by 13.
Hey, that's the jockey I want.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to get your money's worth, evidently that E. Esquivel guy, he gives it his all the way to the wire. So, I mean, what do you think here? Did he improve at all, or is it that's just totally the mysteries of class, and he just went there and outclassed? I mean, the one thing is, see, there was another horse that ran that day, Alto Bell, and he ran 3 seconds faster than her. That's why they had to give him a 99.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that he improved. No. I think against this quality, it is what it is. I wouldn't be using him at all here, no. I mean, I guess maybe the only case you can make for him, even on your tickets at all, like even in tries or anything, I would only even consider him on the bottom end of tries if it was a wet track. He's Malibu Moon out of a Giants Causeway mare. But that's it.
Yeah, I know. I do agree with you there. If somehow it becomes a sloppy track, even a muddy or just a little off would be helpful. But if all of a sudden it was sloppy, then all of a sudden you're looking at the 2-hole, you know, maybe if it's favoring speed a little bit in the slop, I mean, I could see them being maybe.
But it's going to take something.
Yeah, I mean, I think he wins more if some goofy stuff happens. But, I mean, yeah, that speed figure just kind of sticks out there. Sounds like, you know, we both kind of think Cherry Wine can maybe do something. I do think it's interesting that, and I do think it's Corey Lannery chose Cherry Wine over Brody's Cause. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely possible.
But yeah, that's a full field. So, and then I wanted to quick talk about the Anita Derby, 10-horse field. There's a couple of newcomers, but you know, the big 3 are back: Exaggerator, More Spirit, and Dancing Candy. Do you see any reason to believe that something's going to change among those 3, or how do you kind of see this race shaping up? I was surprised that More Spirit was made 8-5 morning line favorite.
Yeah, I mean, people have been saying all week that More Spirit might go off favorite, and I kind of thought that was funny, and then he was actually made the morning line favorite. So I don't know, maybe it's the Baffert factor, beats me. But I mean, I don't see him beating Dancing Candy unless Dancing Candy isn't what I think he is. I mean, to me at this point, I am 99% convinced Dancing Candy does not need the lead. That'll be tested this weekend because Denman's Call goes forward. Smokey's Image, well, he didn't go ahead of him last time, but he can be sent. Iron Rob is the main one. He's very, very fast. So there definitely is some added speed in here from last time. And unless they all take back, which it's possible that happens, especially a horse like Uncle Lino, Demon's Call, if you're worried about them staying both coming out of that sprint race last time, they might pull them back. But if they run them typical to their styles to this point, they'll both be forward, and Dancing Kenny's going to have to sit up and relax. I don't think he's having a problem doing that. Just watching him in his races, he just seems one of these types that as long as he's allowed to go on at his own tempo and isn't actively, like, really restrained, he's fine and he relaxes perfectly. This is one of these, I can actually sort of see it setting up a little bit like the Arkansas Derby with American Pharoah last year, where, like, American Pharoah didn't actually rate, but he wasn't the leader. A horse went off and ran off without him, and he was behind his own race. So he didn't actually have to.
Big Muppy, 45-3.
Yeah, so I mean, he didn't actually, like, I keep seeing people saying, like, well, Pharoah showed he could rate before the Derby. No, he didn't rate in there. He wasn't pulled back up anything. That horse just blew by everybody. I could see something like that happening here, but regardless, I think this is a race. If Dancing Candy relaxes and doesn't over race, then I think he wins this race, and I think that's what he's capable of. So I'd be picking him here. But that's, he might make me look like a fool. He might just pull his way all the way around the track, and that's it. But that's kind of what I'm banking my money on, that he is this calm, composed type that I've thought he is all along.
Well, I just thought Dancing Candy dominated the San Felipe. I don't know why it would change any this time. I'm actually glad to see Iron Rob and Denman's Call in there, because I do think that gives them the choice to sit in third if they need to. And you're right. If he doesn't rate, he'll finish up the track. But, I mean, I saw nothing in those last three races that says he's worse. I mean, I didn't see anything in that race. I'm more encouraged by Exaggerator, because I thought he had a weird trip in that race, but I just thought More Spirit was beat.
Yeah, I thought More Spirit absolutely was beat. Exaggerator is interesting. I mean, I guess for me, this is his last straw as far as routing goes. I mean, well, not routing, but extended past a mile goes. I can tell you right now, I was at Santa Anita watching the San Felipe from up high, and looking down and seeing them coming around the far turn. I thought Exaggerator was going to just blow by Dancing Candy, and he just stopped. So, I mean, my gut tells me he just doesn't stay, that he's ultimately going to be a 7 furlong to a miler horse. If that's the case, I think that's, I think that's the logical reasoning, especially because Nyquist ran so well in the Florida Derby. It kind of validates that form in a way that, like, Nyquist beat a sprinter miler in a sprint mile, 7 furlongs in that intermediate distance. So that showed Nyquist's class, which then he in turn showed in the Florida Derby. I mean, because I know, DeShorma was said he can't believe what happened when the Exaggerator didn't run well when Nyquist went. So I mean, I think that's the only way to sort of logically explain it. But we'll see if Exaggerator can improve. He's shown talent. My gut tells me he's a 7 furlong to a mile horse, but we'll see it here.
I actually think the bulkier field is going to help a horse like Exaggerator and hurt a horse like More Spirit. More Spirit got the perfect trip the last time. Now he's got to deal with these goofball long shots, and I still don't think he can run inside horses. If you noticed on the backside when the horse came up on his outside, that's where he got strangled for about 2 furlongs. And then once he got cleared on the lane, he waited and then went outside of Exaggerator. And if you notice, there was plenty of room at the rail. Stevens chose to go to the outside. So I just think More Spirits, no matter what happens this race, whether Exaggerator wins it or Dancing Candy wins it, or even if More Spirit wins it, he's just one of those horses that he's always going to be closing. So that's the horse that people are going to gravitate towards too. I just don't know. I just think horses like that, sometimes they're just consistently overbet. Like, I just think at 8-5, I'd rather play Dancing Candy or Exaggerator or somebody else. I mean, I just think More Spirits, that's the type of horse people like. They like the closer, and they like Gary Stevens, and they like Bob Baffert, and they like the breeding. And so Dancing Candy could win by 2 lengths again, and I still think More Spirit will be lower odds than him in the Derby.
Yeah, I mean, More Spirit's a difficult type. I mean, not just because he's a closer, but the type of closer he is what poses a problem. He was able to win races early because he was just the class of the field, but when he's gone against this tougher competition, the problem is that he's just kind of a plotter. So he really needs kind of suicidal fractions. He needs a race to fall apart in order to win. And, that was what killed him last time, is that he didn't get that. He got a race that was run at a very steady tempo, and that's the race shape that just always beats those plotter types. I mean, we see that, well, we saw that with like Keen Ice going against American Pharoah so many times. The one race that he got the collapse, he won, but all the rest of the times, you just can't even, it's hard for a closer to even close into those deadly run fractions. I mean, watch like Honor Code in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and you'll see that. But I think More Spirit, again, is going to get a similar type race. I mean, even Iron Rob, who's fast and who I expect to be on the lead here, he's a horse who, he doesn't go crazy. He runs at a very even, steady tempo. It's just fast versus a sprinter, but I don't think this is a race that's going to collapse, and that's what a horse like More Spirit needs.
Well, it should be a great race weekend of racing. Lots of big races. Fillies we didn't even get to. The Ashland, the Gazelle, the Fantasy Stakes at Oaklawn Park. So the big 3 races for 3-year-olds this week, the Bluegrass, the Santa Anita Derby, and the Wood Memorial. The Wood Memorial we're kind of differing on. You're going with Adventus. I'm going with Matt King Cole. Santa Anita Derby, we're both on Dancing Candy. And then the Bluegrass, we're kind of differing as well. Although I think I ended up going with Cherry Wine on top. Who did you officially go with on top?
I have My Man Sam, but I use Cherry Wine, so we have those 2 in common.
All right. Well, next week we'll recap this big weekend and then take a look at the Arkansas Derby and the Lexington Stakes. Actually, those races are going to come up nice. There's a possibility that Swipe may run in the Lexington, and I think we're going to see a more realistic field in Arkansas, 9 or 10 horses rather than one of these 14 horses races. So we'll see if that changes up any of the mix down in Oaklawn.
Absolutely. Good weekends ahead. We're getting close to the Derby.
All right. That's going to do it for another edition of Down to the Wire.